Good morning, everyone. How you doing? Good? Good morning so far? All right. Beautiful people, beautiful country, beautiful food, usually beautiful weather apart from today. So I speak German and English. That's it. You want German or English? Okay. Just checking, just checking. All right. So that's good. We're aligned. It's a great pleasure to be here again. Thank you, Gabriel, for having me, and thanks to the team for arranging everything. From what I saw this morning, great setup, great show, great discussions. Obviously, it was superb to see Gabriel and Bruno start with some of the predictions and the impact, particularly on Portugal as well. So what I will do today, rather than taking you through all our FutureScape predictions again, there's an ebook you can download. I thought it would be much more fun and maybe appropriate to look at some of the things that you might have to do sort of now-ish in terms of where we're going in the industry. Now, longer term, it's still about reimagining what's going on there, because this isn't digital transformation 2.0. We do see it as a massive, different change that's coming towards all of us. It's going to affect all of us as well. Personally, as an organization, as a government, as a society, it's just going to be everywhere. But maybe it would be great to see what you think. It's not all going quite so fast as we think. Because there are some challenges that we're facing. So Gabriel and Bruno showed this before, and this is these are the global numbers. So we're clearly in a tech-enabled world. Everyone's moving towards the digital business. And technology investments will continue to grow faster than the economy. And the conversation has changed somewhat over the last year from it's all about resilience and how do we survive to how do we grow again. Now, there is a bit of an issue. When you look sort of at that 2020-21 kind of period, the whole pandemic, we digitalized really quickly. A lot of this was around getting the employees connected and staying in touch and being able to run a business. We also saw very quickly, though, that a lot of the models that were built at the time didn't actually pan out. If you needed to do a supply chain forecast, not monthly anymore, but on a daily basis, that often didn't work. Often the models were incomplete, or the data sets behind weren't fully fledged. So, spin forward, all of a sudden, less than a year and a half ago, ChatGPT happens, and everyone's going, wow, this is a great idea. We've got to get on the bandwagon there. You've got to ask yourself, though, how much really has changed in terms of you being prepared and prepped to actually move along that curve very swiftly. So, regardless of that, if you're still here, sort of in that area where you're figuring out what your digital transformation looks like, you're beginning to look at this, of the API, some of the narrow AI pieces. That's good, and I think this is where most people are. But very swiftly, and you see this in terms of the investment, we're moving towards that AI everywhere era. Now, it is clear that this is going to mean a lot of money is going to be spent. So globally, about $500 million by 2027. Keeping in mind, though, this is all of AI. Gen AI is a part of this, and I assume most of you are looking at the Gen AI piece at the moment. Now, there are differences, right? And you'll see CIO of Siemens Healthineers later. There are companies that are much more advanced in some of those areas already. But for most, it's a journey around Gen AI. And Gen AI is about 1/3 of that overall AI market in 2027. What's growing, and you can't read it, but you will get the slides, the infrastructure investment is the biggest one out of that bucket at this particular point in our view. But all of those, software, services, everything is going to grow. All right, so that's where we are. So the question we get a lot of the time, is this going to disrupt my industry? And I guess most people think yes. And it's quite prominent, whether you're in finance and healthcare and retail, it's going to have an impact on the industry that you're in. I picked the top 4, but as we move along this journey, you'll see that it will affect everyone because not everything's clear and people don't really understand and know exactly yet where this is all going to end up. The good news is that means more transformation. Not like we haven't had enough of that, but that continues to be the key word from a tech perspective as well. But you can see growth creeping in there again as well. Now, the questions that we keep having that are coming up are largely in sort of like 5 areas. And those areas were mentioned as part of the previous presentation that Gabrielle and Bruno did as well as from IBM, as well as from OutSystems as well. But it's going to have an impact on the organizational model. It's going to have an impact on particularly the trust pillar as well. So there are questions that are clearly quite rife. The spending, so this is a CIO poll, the spending that we see, the spending intentions are pretty high again, irrespective of the economic situation. And by the way, have a look at how many elections there are this year. I mean, this is going to be a wild year. We are part of a Blackstone group of companies, and we had an update with their chief strategist, and they only look at the financial metrics and the monetary policies and all of this stuff, not of the elections. That was interesting to get that perspective, but I think the elections, that's going to be interesting. I'm based in Germany, strikes everywhere at the moment, right? And we'll see, I think, more of unrest and uncertainty coming up. Anyway, regardless of everything that's going on, CIOs want to spend some money, which is good, right? However, if you're spending money, so you've, I'm sure, been on a cloud journey, public cloud journey at some level, and you probably have heard or seen or maybe implemented this as well, FinOps, CloudOps, AIOps, all these things are coming now because there's been this sprawl, you didn't feel you're getting the value, and now you're spending money on this, you're not quite sure. We're trialing a number of AI products at the moment to help us. We're in the knowledge industry, makes a lot of sense. The numbers that you're spending rack up very quickly. So that's certainly a concern, which means you need to connect it to something that's tangible. So a customer experience use case, perhaps, or perhaps it's marketing, or it's perhaps sales, but it's got to be quite specific, and you want to make sure you're getting the return on that. Because going into this innovation, island of innovation sprawl that happened during digital transformation at the beginning, probably is not going to get you where you want to go. So, again, you probably won't be able to read this very much, but we think the way it's going to work is that you're going to have these use cases. They're going to be aligned to a business function, CHRO or CFO or the COO or what have you. And we've taken the top 2 by these functions and then mapped them in terms of where we think, is it going to take longer? Is there a short-term roadmap? Is there a longer-term roadmap? But the way they principally split is that you get shorter-term focus on the productivity piece, and the longer-term focus on the revenue growth piece. Now, there'll always be an alignment somewhat between the two. You're not going to do productivity and then start growth. But just keep in mind that this is sort of like the way a lot of your peers are thinking about it. In order to make this happen, you've got to decide on how you do that. And it was great to see the presentation from Nuno earlier as well, just how you conceptually can think about this. But there are multiple options, not just build or buy. You can amend, you can get serviced, you can get all kinds of things done. We think that when we look at what's being embedded from the freemium kind of model to the model that is effectively geared on the services side to outcomes, specific business outcomes, there's going to be a lot in the middle that happens there, where you sort of sit between subscription, consumption. A lot of it is going to be embedded as well. And that's going to be the next hurdle for many organizations, trying to figure out exactly what to do there. Now, this is an example from Utku. It's a company, Archelic, they're a consumer goods company. And basically what they've done, they went through the different functions, marketing, sales, after-sales, product management, and they stood up 67 use cases. That's quite comprehensive. I heard from a bank, I talked to a bank last week, First Abu Dhabi Bank. They've got 7 use cases, which is probably not so much. But you've got to start somewhere, but you've got to get this coordinated. The other piece that's really critical, I think particularly for us here in Europe, and it was great to see that actually coming up earlier, and you see the same slide in a second, risk, compliance, and security absolutely top the agenda. So despite all the hype around AI, Gen AI, if you're letting anything drop out of your budget, it's not going to be security, risk, and compliance. And there are a number of reasons for this. When we look at the AI world, you'd see that there are concerns about data and IP, accuracy and what have you. And again, Gabriel and Bruno presented that earlier, all true. So what we're saying is, okay, so you've got to start probably with, some sort of governance framework where you go, educate, I need to extend the existing governance to also cover the AI, Gen AI kind of applications. You want to monitor and drive the transparency as well. So this is something I would really encourage you to look at. It's built out more in our research, and I think gives a good steer of how to approach this. Now, the other part of this is ESG. Depending on where you are in the world, it has more or less impact. If you look at the BMW senior management compensation, 25% of their compensation is already tied to ESG goals. And we expect this to increase not only because of the legal environment, but also because it's the right thing to do, and it builds your company trusted brand as well. But what I would like you to listen to maybe just for a second is Rainer, who's also based in Munich. He works for Allianz, covers all these areas, and he's got this to say about sustainability.
Well, AI is a very good example where sustainability can benefit from artificial intelligence if you treat it right. We have to say it consumes a lot of energy, and there was definitely in press and media a lot of poor examples of AI in regard of ethics and ethical treatment of data. So we have to be responsible in using it. But on the other side, it enables us for a huge amount of topics like data treatment. If you take the sheer amount of data which is required for CSRD, for reportings, for directives which are coming across all to companies in Europe, all the data sets could be either manually corrected or manually collected and uploaded, or driven by automatic type of usage in AI surroundings. And this is where I think there is a huge advantage for us to get people who are currently stuck in reporting and looking towards their past and just to the current data sets, could then just free up their time with AI technologies to then support and get active towards the future and influence what the company is doing and how to get more sustainable.
So, like everywhere else, AI has if you want, two sides to the coin. It can help, it can hinder. Same with security. Threats increase, but you might be able to actually respond better or increase your posture. What's interesting here, though, is that it has an impact on how you operate as a company as well. So Allianz is a global company. They've got, I think, about 6,000 people in India, for example. There is a law coming in Germany now. You might be aware of this. It was like supply chain law. So you become responsible also in Germany for your whole supply chain, your partner ecosystem, what have you, and who you deal with. So that only exists, if you want, in a region. But Allianz is applying this globally. And that changes who you work with and who you do business with going forward. Now, it is quite clear, and you saw that slide earlier, that the legal environment and the frameworks that are coming out, and I loved, again, the slide from Nuno earlier, around where the different EU AI Act paragraphs sort of come in at which point. But keeping an eye on what's going on, not just in your country, but if you're international or regional, doing business in the EU, you just need to know what's going on and prepare for it, and understand that your partners that you deal with have to do the same thing. Last point I wanted to make is around engagement with the C-suite. I already showed that it needs to be an aligned strategy that's being built across the different functions that exist with a line of businesses in the organization as well. And that's going to be critical because a lot of the investment is going to be funded and is going to be coming from those business units. And someone needs to coordinate this. The investment priorities, so think about use cases again, and what you do are mainly around customer experience, productivity, and then revenue generation and order velocity. So bringing business again, growing the business. Now, only 14% are saying, yeah, we're not doing much in this area. I don't think, and I think there was a brilliant slide earlier, if you don't pay, you don't play type stuff, right? So you gotta get on the bandwagon. Now, how you do this could be really interesting. So are you going to have a chief AI officer role? Are we going to be somewhere with where we were with digital, the chief digital officer, it's a new function that came into play? Irrespective of what you call that function, you probably need someone focused on this. Much like you have someone focused on governance, for example. It's going to be critical that you have some sort of coordination around the AI and Gen AI activities in your organization. Otherwise, you are going to see the sprawl, and we're seeing business units, you might have seen this already as well, just buying stuff again. So we've got like shadow AI IT again that's happening. Now, the other part that's happening is that jobs are going to be impacted in a major way. So 1.1 billion jobs. Out of those, the working population, our future work team said, they believe about 40% of roles are either going to be eliminated or changed. So it pays to stay on the bandwagon, but there is obviously a big skills gap. So there is an opportunity to reskill, to drive the talent in your organization, to use obviously AI for automation as well where possible. But there is going to be a whole lot of stuff that's going to be created, but there are going to be new roles. So we'll need to move forward with this. Just lastly, one video from Stefan Henkel. He's the CIO at Siemens Healthineers. And I think this is really cool because he basically wraps all this up in 3 points. You've got to get closer to the business in a very secure, risk-averse way. You've got to be working with your partners, particularly your technology partners, so the vendor community very closely to understand the roadmaps. And you've got to prepare your people for what's coming up, your team members and employees. So let's have a listen to him.
We need to prepare for the opportunities for tomorrow. And for that, we are focusing on 3 areas. The one is getting much more closer to the business, setting up combined teams, still keeping the consistency of the different functions and business entities, but acting as one team, as a kind of BizSec DevOps team together with the business. The second one is improving our partner management, because we rely on the partners. A lot of the generative AI capabilities are coming from the partners. That's why we need to have a trusted partnership with the partners. We need to know their roadmap, their innovations in the futures, and they need to know ours. We are depending in our success on each other. And the third one is we need to improve our workforce capabilities. So we need to think ahead. So what's coming up in 3 years? So we will look into what are the technology trends, what have we today in our portfolio, what are we missing, and then prepare, train our people, create learning journeys, and take us into the future. The future will be bright.
I love the fact that Stefan is both German and positive about the future. So it's just nice to see, right? So not traditionally perhaps what we've always seen. So that's great. So you got the part, you got to work with your partner landscape as well, but that's exploding at the moment, okay? So you really need to be crisp and clear on who you work with, and it's not going to be one person only or one organization. Likely you'll have a network, but you've got to make some strategic decisions. So they're giving me the hook. I had 20 minutes to race through this, and hopefully it was good. But let me just leave you with, if you do nothing else, really make sure you identify the challenges around the skills and the costs you have, amongst others, but also where does the value sit in terms of the use cases that you do. Prioritize the key activities. A responsible AI strategy that's more holistic is definitely needed. Figure out where the roadmaps are and where you're going with this. And then lastly, you need that intelligent architecture, and you need to figure out what the requirements are, the roles you need, and your ecosystem partners. With that, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here again. Looking forward to engaging later. Thank you.